You're listening to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from January 26th, 2022. It is Beach Break coming to us from Cleveland, Ohio, and what a show. I really enjoyed the show. It was actually a really fun show. Now, this show is called Beach Break. That's what the special show is called, but it's taking place in Cleveland, Ohio, in which I heard it was like snowing like crazy in Cleveland. So you guys in Cleveland, it was kind of confusing why the show is called Beach Break, but it's in Cleveland. A lot of people were saying that, if the show is called Beach Break, it would have been in a much better setting. For example, if I immediately think Beach Break, I instantly think Club La Vila in Panama City Beach, Florida. Of course, that was where WCW used to do the spring breakout shows. And, really, AEW should utilize that. They really should utilize Club La Vila. I believe Club La Vila is opened. Correct me if I'm wrong. I looked it up. It said it was open. It may be closed, but you never know. But, again, the show is called Beach Break, but it's in Cleveland. That's just, a little thing I want to get off my chest. But overall, Beach Break was a really fun show. And not only that, AEW actually made fun of the fact that, Cleveland was snowy and the show was called Beach Break. So that was actually pretty funny to see. But the matches on the show, man. We had Cody Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara for the TNT Championship in a ladder match, which opened the show, which, in my opinion, was arguably one of the best ladder matches in, honestly, like, the modern era of wrestling. Like, I deadass enjoyed the ladder match that we saw last night on TBS. Of course, we had Adam Cole versus Orange Cassidy in a lights-out match. Lights out. People do not understand the meaning of it on social media, but I will talk about that later because people were complaining that Adam Cole lost last night, but I am going to clear the air as to why it makes sense, because this is a lights-out match, and people apparently do not know the difference between sanctioned and non-sanctioned. Again, wins and losses matter in AEW. If this happened in WWE, it really wouldn't have mattered, because wins and losses really do not matter in the WWE. But we're going to be talking about Beach Break. The show started off with Cody Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara, of course, in a ladder match for the undisputed TNT Championship. Of course, as you guys all know, back at Battle of the Belts, it was originally supposed to be Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is actually supposed to be defending the TNT Championship, but unfortunately, I believe it was due to a medical reason. I believe it was COVID that he was not able to attend the show. And, AEW basically had to crown an interim TNT champion, which I thought was a good idea. A lot of people did not like the idea of an interim champion, but I supported the idea of an interim champion. So instead, we had Dustin Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara in a really good match at Battle of the Belts a couple of weeks ago. And, of course, that led to Sammy Guevara winning the interim TNT championship. And then what happens now, we have the ladder match between Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. And again, as I've stated earlier, this ladder match was arguably one of the best ladder matches in the modern era of wrestling. Now, there's been a lot of good ladder matches in the past, especially in the WWE. I mean, you can instantly talk about the Hardys, Dudleys, Edge and Christian. Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 10 for the Intercontinental title. A lot of great ladder matches out there. Of course, my favorites were the TLC matches, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the TLC matches. Or, a couple of those TLC matches from Raw, back in 2002, or the ladder matches back in 2002. One match that instantly pops up my head is Undertaker versus Jeff Hardy. That was such a good-ass match. But, WWE is really known to have really good ladder matches, especially in the past. But really nowadays, there are not a lot of ladder matches, especially in the WWE, that are not really as memorable as they usually are. Like, I can remember they did the Intercontinental Championship ladder match. Of course, the Money in the Bank ladder match, Money in the Bank to me is not really as important as it used to be. Now, granted, the last winner of the Money in the Bank being Big E, of course, he successfully cashed it in and all that stuff. But his title reign didn't really last long. It only lasted a couple of months, not really a lot. But, yeah, I mean, like, really, WWE nowadays, like, when it comes to ladder matches, I don't feel like they're as important as they used to be. And I feel like the ladder matches now, or the ladder match that we saw last night on Dynamite was really fucking awesome. I legit enjoyed this ladder match. It was literally the first thing in the show. I believe there was no intro. If there was an intro, I completely missed that. I literally tuned in the show as soon as Justin Roberts was doing the introduction. So, yeah, the show started off with Cody Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara for the undisputed TNT Championship. And let me tell you, the spots on this match, man, and, in ladder matches, you see a lot of crazy spots. One spot off the top of my head was definitely Shelton Benjamin's clothesline on top of the ladder on Chris Jericho back at WrestleMania 21. That spot was arguably one of my favorite spots of all time, man. The first Money in the Bank ladder match was extremely, it's one of the best, in my opinion. But we're going to be talking about Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. Again, the spots on this match were absolutely insane. Like, that cutter that Sammy cut was freaking real, man. One of the best spots I've ever seen. One of the best things that Sammy Guevara has ever done in wrestling. And Sammy Guevara is known to do some crazy stuff, like stunts in his matches. Because Sammy Guevara is the best ever, and he is the Spanish God. But the match starts. There's a little bit of technical wrestling in the beginning. Both lock up. We got a side headlock by Cody. Cody goes for a shoulder tackle, and then we get a drop kick by Sammy. Sammy then stands on his own 2 feet. We get a side headlock by Sammy, but then Cody targets the ankle of Sammy, but then Sammy pushes out. Cody then applies the wrist lock. Then Sammy picks up Cody, but Cody escapes. Then Sammy goes, he blocks the right hand. We got a waist lock by Cody. Cody then takes Sammy to the outside, but then Sammy grabs the ladder on the outside. Cody works on Sammy on the outside, but then Cody takes a ladder. Then he sets it between the guardrail and the apron, the ring apron. Then Sammy Guevara comes back. He sends Cody over the guardrail. Both fight it out in the crowd, so I love the fact that they were fighting in the crowd. Then Cody runs to Sammy and hits a clothesline over the guardrail. So Sammy went back into the ringside area. Then Sammy hits a cutter on Cody after that. Like a cutter. He literally hit a cutter on the crowd, I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I gotta rewatch the match, man, because there was a lot of shit that happened in the match. Sammy then takes the ladder in the ring. Cody comes back. Cody then gains control, but then Cody gets sent up and over and lands on the ring apron. But Sammy then takes the ladder and runs to Cody, landing him onto the outside. But then Sammy climbs the ladder, but then Cody comes back. So they're basically racing to get the championship at this point. But after that, Sammy climbs up, but Cody comes back. We get a back elbow by Sammy. Both position the ladder. Both climb up the top, but then both exchange shots. Cody then hits a vertical suplex on Sammy from the top of the ladder. Once we go to commercial break, then Cody's in control. Once we're back from break, Cody then hits a front suplex on Sammy in between the legs of the ladder, which was really painful to see. Cody then applies the figure 4 on Sammy Guevara through the ladder, not on the ladder, through the ladder, which, again, definitely looked painful. Cody then sets up the ladder in the center of the ring. We get a chop by Cody in the corner. We get an overhead chop by Cody in the corner. Then he hits a third overhand chop. Then Sammy gets up and hits multiple clotheslines. We get a spear in the corner by Sammy. Sammy then hits a enziguri from the apron. But then Cody throws the ladder onto Sammy. Cody then sets up the ladder in the corner and then takes Sammy to the top rope. At this point, Cody is climbing in the center of the ring with the ladder in the center of the ring, of course. But then with the other ladder set in the corner, Sammy Guevara is climbing up that ladder and he hits a freaking cutter off that ladder onto Cody, landing straight to the mat. Holy fucking shit. That spot was arguably the best spot of the entire match. And this match is known to have some crazy stuff in the match. I mean, of course, that Sammy, of course, jumping off the ladder, hitting Cody on the outside, not breaking the ladder. I mean, that was like the second best spot. But this spot was probably the best spot of the entire match. So he hits a freaking cutter. So Sammy then climbs up, but then Cody sends the ladder, leading to Sammy to fall down. Then Cody climbs the ladder. Sammy then sets a ladder in the center. Sammy goes up. Both exchange shots. Cody then, both on the top rope. Not on the top rope, on the top of the ladder. He hits a crossroads off the ladder after that. Cody then climbs the ladder, but then Sammy holds on as well. But then both fall down. At this point, both are on the outside. Then Cody drags Sammy. He takes the ladder and hits it to the leg of Sammy. Then what happens out of nowhere? Fuego del Sol comes in. I don't know why the hell Fuego del Sol comes in. It makes absolutely no sense, I'm like, why the hell is Fuego del Sol coming in, man? Get out of here. But then Sammy hits a spring. After that, actually, completely forgot. I missed that. Cody hits a Tiger Driver 98 on, of course, Fuego del Sol to basically eliminate him from the equation. Then Sammy goes for a springboard, but then Cody catches him. Sammy then sends Cody on the outside. He hits the tornado after, yes, Sammy goes for the tornado over the top rope. Then on the outside, Sammy hits the GTH. He takes a ladder from the bottom of the ring, and then he takes Cody on top of the ladder in between the apron of the guardrail from earlier on in the match. Then what happens? He sets up the ladder next to Cody. Sammy climbs up the ladder. He goes for a fucking somersault on top of the ladder. Off the ladder, I should say. And you would expect that the ladder would break, but it actually did not break. It looked more painful because of the fact that the ladder did not break on Cody. So I could tell, even though Cody Rhodes, yeah, he definitely, got a bunch of pain on there. Definitely Sammy Guevara got most of the pain because of the fact that the ladder did not break. And he just landed on bare bones right there on the ladder. So that must have been painful for Sammy. But then after that, Sammy climbs up the ladder in the center of the ring. Cody then climbs up later on. Both exchange strikes on top of the ladder. But then Sammy Guevara grabs the hook of the belt. I believe, so what happens is Cody has the belt. I believe Cody was the one that held on to the hook, but then they both dropped. I believe that was early on in the match. But they're both on top. And then Sammy grabs the hook and then hits Cody with the belts. Sammy Guevara grabs both TNT titles and is officially declared the undisputed TNT champion. Wow. A great opener for the show. As I always stated on my Dynamite reviews, for most Dynamite reviews, Dynamite always starts off hot. Whether it's a world title match that was being built for weeks, this match that was announced last week, but everybody knew that we were definitely going to be getting a rematch between Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. This match was amazing, man. I really enjoyed this match, and this is one of the main reasons why Dynamite is definitely my favorite wrestling show of the week. It's one of the reasons why that I do believe that this show is so much better than what you watch on Raw and SmackDown, because of the fact that the show starts off mad hot instead of an opening segment. Now, there are some weeks, like for example, a couple of weeks ago, Dynamite did start off with an opening segment, but it was actually really entertaining. And that's not saying that, every week, with WWE starting off with Brock Lesnar or with Roman Reigns on SmackDown, they're not entertaining, because they are, but they happen every week. Most weeks on Dynamite, the show starts off extremely hot with a banger of a match, or in this case, a freaking ladder match that we saw with Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. I mean, bruh, this match was probably one of the best matches I've seen in the modern era of wrestling in the last couple of years. Like, this match was flat out amazing. Like, should I put this on par with the steel cage match between the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks at All Out last year? I honestly do not know. I mean, this match was amazing. I mean, I'll probably put that at like maybe number 3. Like, if I were to name 3 best AEW matches, I'd probably put this at number 3 and, the Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks steel cage match at number 1. I honestly do not know what I would put number 2. There's many debates out there because there's a lot of great matches so far in AEW's history. But again, man, this match was amazing, man. And it really sets the tone, and again, it basically supports what Cody Rhodes stated last week in his really awesome promo on Dynamite. Of course, he was basically, a lot of people deemed it as Cody Rhodes' own pipe bomb, but the reason why a lot of people treat the TNT championship, or not treat, view the TNT as a secondary championship is because there's 2 champions. I loved the connection that he made right there. And really, this match really gives importance to the TNT champion. Now, granted, the TNT championship always had importance ever since its inception 2 years ago. But, I mean, again, man, when it comes to mid-card championships, because at the end of the day, the TNT championship, even though AEW is not going to admit it, it is still a mid-card championship or a television championship. At least AEW puts a lot of importance when it comes to, their mid-card titles, in my opinion, especially the TNT championship. When you watch a WWE show, especially now, I mean, there's barely any importance when it comes to the U.S. title or the Intercontinental title, in my opinion. I feel like the last time those titles were important were like 2015 and 2016. Like, those were like the last times they were important. But like, I felt like those later years, I mean, to me, I just, they're not memorable to me. But like, the last time those titles were important were really 2015, 2016. Of course, 2015 was when John Cena had the U.S. title and had the open challenge every week. And we had banger of matches on Raw every week. But in this case, the TNT Championship, it's really important. And this match absolutely proves it. And you know what? Both Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara tore the freaking house down in Cleveland, Ohio. So that was an awesome-ass match to see. Tony Schiavone is with Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks outside. So this is what I was talking about. So you guys know how Beach Break, the show is called Beach Break. That was the special episode of Dynamite. The show is called Beach Break. And Tony Schiavone was interviewing both Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs on the outside, and it was freaking snowing outside. So what happens? Basically, Hobbs challenges Dante Martin to a match, and then Ricky Starks challenges Jay Lethal next week on Rampage for the FTW Fuck the World Championship on Rampage in Chicago next week. So that will definitely be a great match. Do I think Ricky Starks is probably going to drop the FTW Championship? You never know. Maybe Jay Lethal can go over, because a lot of people are creating the assumption that, you never know. Maybe you can give his Hook's first championship, the FTW Championship, which I wouldn't be against, having Hook win the FTW Championship. But, of course, in this case, we're going to have a babyface to hold on to the FTW Championship for an amount of time. So, but, again, I'm really excited to see what goes down between Jay Lethal and Ricky Starks next week on Rampage. I think that's going to be a banger of a match. Wardlow goes up against two jobbers who I did not name on my notes. They did name them on the show, but I did not name them because why the hell am I not going to name them? They're just two jobbers. Basically, what happens, Wardlow takes them all out. He hits 6 power bombs, and we got to cover, and Wardlow wins the match. Common occurrence every week with Wardlow. They're really building up Wardlow as the unstoppable guy, which is great to see, because they're definitely going to split him up from the Pinnacle, and this guy is going to be a mega babyface, in my opinion. He's already getting over when it comes to these short, jobber squasher matches. So, it's pretty obvious. Here's one match that was actually really good. Chris Jericho and Santana and Ortiz versus Daniel Garcia and 2.0, of course, Matt Lee and Jeff Parker. So overall, to be quite honest, this was a good match. This was a good match, as I stated earlier. And, of course, the story that they're telling is, of course, the inner crackings, the inner dissension of the inner circle regarding Santana and Ortiz and Chris Jericho. Because, as you guys know, last week in the backstage segment with Santana and Ortiz, Chris Jericho and all that, Santana and Ortiz were basically telling Jericho that, maybe Eddie Kingston was right. The reason why we don't got the tag titles is because of guys like Chris Jericho. I definitely see where this is going. Do I see that do I think Santana and Ortiz could possibly turn on Chris Jericho? Honestly, I do not know. But do I think Santana and Ortiz deserve a shot? They deserve a push at the tag titles? Absolutely. You had all these tag teams getting pushed that really, Santana and Ortiz for these past, 2 years really weren't in the tag team title scene. And you know what? I'm like, why? That actually makes no... Now, granted, they did wrestle the Young Bucks. I think it was in a street fight a couple of months ago. A couple of weeks ago. But, I think that was it. Everything else, to be quite honest with you, everything else... it wasn't the Young Bucks in a street fight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Literally, I don't remember stuff from a couple months ago, apparently. But, I can't recall, Santana and Ortiz wrestling for the tag titles. If you guys comment down below, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, I feel like the Santana and Ortiz have really, in my opinion, really have been put on the side for all these months, and I'm like, bro, what are you guys gonna do with Santana and Ortiz, man? They really do need the tag titles, because a lot of people were saying they were the guys to take the tag titles off the Young Bucks, and I wouldn't be against that. Or maybe the Lucha Bros. I wouldn't be against. I wasn't against that either. But of course, we had Jurassic Express take the tag titles a couple of weeks ago on the TBS debut. So do I think we'll eventually get a match between Santana and Ortiz and the Lucha Bros? Maybe, but again, legit, I felt like Santana and Ortiz really haven't, really been pushed all that well, in my opinion. Of course, because they were doing all this stuff, especially last year with the whole Inner Circle versus Pinnacle feud, which I thought that feud was freaking amazing, in my opinion. But, of course, there is dissension within the Inner Circle. Jericho and Matt Lee start. Santana then tags himself in. Then Matt Lee goes straight for the attack, but then Jeff Parker tags in. Santana is in control, but works on Parker in the corner. Then Santana goes for the Three Amigos. Of course, Santana is known for his Three Amigos. A little tribute right there to Eddie Guerrero. And then the third Amigo is a double suplex by both Santana and Ortiz. We got a standing moonsault by Ortiz. We got a splash by Ortiz. Matt Lee then tags in. He proceeds to work on Ortiz. Then Daniel Garcia then tags in. We got a couple of chops by Ortiz. Then both Garcia and Ortiz exchange shots after that. Santana tags in. We got a double face plant by Santana and Ortiz. We got a combination dropkick by Santana and Ortiz after that. Then Jericho tags himself in after that. So again, a little bit of dissension right there because Jericho, of course, is getting pissed off that, Santana and Ortiz is not tagging him in the match. 2.0 then attack the entire inner circle. Then during the commercial break, the heels are in control. Once we're back from break, 2.0 is still in control. We get a backdrop by Ortiz. Matt Lee then tags in. Ortiz then takes out Lee and Garcia. At this point, the hot tag is made, but Ortiz tags in Santana instead of Jericho. So then Santana at this point is on a roll. He proceeds to take out 2.0. We get a rolling double cutter on 2.0 by Santana. Then after that, Ortiz hits a powerbomb. Santana then goes for the discus lariat. Then Garcia comes in. Then Matt Lee tags in. But then, of course, Jericho sends Parker to the guardrail on the outside. Then he hits a Judas effect on Matt Lee. And then Santana takes down Matt Lee. We get a cover. And Santana and Ortiz win with Jericho, of course, via the help of Jericho, even though there's a little bit of dissension there. So, yeah, man, a lot of, problems and storyline regarding the inner circle. Where do I think this is going to lead? I mean, there are many different scenarios that can happen. A lot of people are saying they're probably going to team up with Eddie Kingston and create a LAX-like faction. Of course, I believe they were in LAX a couple of years ago in Impact Wrestling. Again, I haven't watched Impact Wrestling a couple of years ago. You want to know why? It's because I didn't give a single shit about Impact Wrestling the last couple of years before AEW was a thing. I watched Impact Wrestling around 2013, 14, and 15, but after those years, and of course 2016 with the whole broken Matt Hardy stuff, but then after that, I stopped watching Impact Wrestling up until 8 with, they were doing the whole Kenny Omega thing with the belt collector stuff. That's it. I really, did not watch a lot of Impact Wrestling, those years before AEW. Of course, I watched 2013, 14, and 15, and 16, but after that, I just did not watch. Yeah, I mean, do I think they're going to do a LAX-like faction? Probably. You never know. But we'll see where this goes. I honestly do not know what they're going to do here, but we'll see. We got a video package of Hangman Page versus Lance Archer. Of course, not of course. I mean, they announced that they're going to have a Texas death match in 2 weeks on Dynamite. I am so freaking happy that they did not book this match at Revolution, because if they had booked this match at Revolution, I would have been so pissed because of the fact that, this feud, as much as I'm a fan of Lance Archer, I do not think that, it'd be a good match for pay-per-view for Hangman versus Lance Archer, in my opinion. Originally I did state, and I did tweet this out on Twitter, but then I deleted it after because of how stupid I looked. So yesterday, right after this video package aired, I tweeted out, great, we're going to be having a Texas death match in 2 weeks. And then I was saying, they should do Danielson versus Hangman 3 in an Iron Man match at Revolution. And that was something I had been advocating for the past couple of weeks, of course. But after that tweet today, I realized how stupid I looked. I'm like, bruh, I look really stupid because of the fact that they teased Danielson versus Moxley last Friday on Rampage, and I completely forgot. So I deleted that shit right away. But, yeah, I mean, again, I still think it would be really awesome if we had Danielson versus Hangman in an Iron Man match. I mean, I would just love that match to have a trilogy. It legit deserves a fucking trilogy. We already saw 2 matches. One of those matches, the second match, I saw live. But I mean, again, in my opinion, it would be a really good decision if they had Danielson versus Hangman in an Iron Man match. But of course, after last Friday with Danielson teasing, a match with Moxley, of course they were originally supposed to be wrestling in the world title tournament, but of course Moxley went to rehab and all that stuff. But I mean, what are they going to do with Hangman? I mean, there are many possible scenarios. A lot of people are saying Cody Rhodes, even though, Cody Rhodes is wrestling without a contract, and he can sign a new contract where in storyline where it states hey, I can wrestle for the world title now. There can be guys like Adam Cole, because he's done with his feud with Orange Cassidy. But I do believe when it comes to Adam Cole's case, I do think when Omega comes back, it's going to be a big deal, because I do believe throughout this whole year, Adam Cole is going to be feuding with Kenny Omega. That's one of my big predictions for 2022. And then he's going to go to the world title. But again, I do believe that the guy to take the world title away from Hangman Adam Page is 100% MJF. It's absolutely MJF, man. I'd book a match between MJF and Hangman at Double or Nothing in May. at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I'd book that match, and the reaction that MJF would get winning the world title in controversial fashion would be arguably one of the best reactions in my opinion. I think there'll be a riot in of course Las Vegas if we saw that. But I'm just getting a little bit ahead of myself. We got to be talking about Revolution. What is the match for Revolution? Honestly, I do not know. Is it going to be Cody Rhodes versus Hangman? Is it going to be Adam Cole versus Hangman? A lot of possibilities when it comes to Revolution this coming March. So, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this. Everybody is, of course, because they're definitely interested to see what they're going to be doing with the AEW World Title for Revolution. We all know that most likely it's going to be Danielson versus Moxley, so the whole Danielson match is completely out of the water. So, we'll see, but we'll see. Jurassic Express and Private Party in a backstage interview, of course, talking about a match. CM Punk. Now we're going to be talking about the CM Punk segment, which I thought was probably an amazing segment. Of course, next week we are going to be getting CM Punk versus MJF. That was announced in this whole particular segment. I'm really excited to have MJF versus CM Punk. A lot of people were saying that this match should happen at Revolution. But, you got to keep in mind, Revolution is in the beginning, right in the beginning of March. It's the end of January. I don't think, AEW really, can keep this build going because we have already seen bangers of segments, promo segments, and just complete verbiage, back and forth between CM Punk and MJF. We really need to get a match, and you got to keep this in mind. AEW only has 4 pay-per-views a year. This is not a scenario where, AEW has 12 pay-per-views a year like WWE. Now, granted, I believe WWE's pay-per-view schedule is much shorter than last year's. I think they have 8 pay-per-views this year. But still, Revolution is going to be in March. And this whole feud between MJF and CM Punk started in Thanksgiving. Yes, it started around Thanksgiving week. That first set, well, not even the week before Thanksgiving week where, CM Punk just walked on MJF and then just left. And just basically shut him up. That was where the whole feud started. It started way back in November. It's January now, so I definitely do see why AEW booked this match for television for next week. So I think 100% that's going to be a great match. Do I see MJF winning? I probably think so because of the fact that, this is definitely the year of MJF. 2022, mark my words, 2022, it's the year of Maxwell Jacob Friedman, period. The guy is going to win the world title. That's my big, bold prediction for 2022, period. But Punk is in his gear. He says hello to Cleveland, and he tried to walk like a badass, but of course they still made him smile. And it's been a minute since he's been in Cleveland. He says he's all taped up, and he's tired of talking. He wants to fight. He asks the crowd to chant who he wants to fight, and then the crowd chants MJF. And says last week he got himself a souvenir, and he basically takes off his sweater, and he has MJF's scarf. Then after that, he looked further at the price tag, and he says that it was made in Long Island. So he knew it was made of cheap material. So then he basically states he wants MJF right here, right now. What happens? MJF comes out, and he asks Cleveland, if they want to see them wrestle. And of course, in typical MJF fashion, he says the answer is no. And after that, he continues to run down the city of Cleveland, Ohio. So he basically states that, why would he give a match in Cleveland? He basically buries Cleveland and calls it disgusting and an absolute cesspool. It says that he will give them the match that we've all wanted next week in Chicago on Dynamite. And it will be CM Punk versus MJF, but they are in Cleveland, not in Chicago. A place of significance in CM Punk's career. He's talking about Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, he talks about people want the match right now, but the outcome will be upsetting. After he beats him, people will see the real CM Punk. The CM Punk who loses his fake smile the second he doesn't get what he wants. The one who blames everything on everybody but himself. And then he continues to basically verbally bury CM Punk, as he always does because he's MJF. And he says that it was a slap in the face when he claimed that he left pro wrestling back in 2005 because it's not the truth. The truth was he left all the fans who loved him and supported that loved him and supported him when he was scheduled to make an appearance in Cleveland all the way back in 2014. Of course, that was I believe the Raw that he no-showed. I think it was the night after the Royal Rumble. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then he says he turned his back on everyone. And what makes you think he will do it again? All those chants are not going to stop him from leaving and then crying about it on a podcast. So, of course, that is a little nod to CM Punk, of course, after he left, he was basically stayed silent for a couple of months and then went on Colt Cabana's podcast and then spilled the beans out. So that was a little nod right there on that. And then Punk replies, a podcast that he listened to because he is a fan. The best thing he did was leave. The best thing he did was come back. If he didn't come back, he wouldn't have his brush with greatness. And then he tells MJF to lace up his boots. He knows he can't handle the business. Poor little Maxwell sitting at home watching his hero on TV, not even realizing that the heroes are also human beings. He never lies to the people. He paid to see him and get his picture and autographed. He made decisions. The people love him because he gets back up and tries to fight. And both continue to go at it verbally. And then what happens is, MJF then states, oh, you always get back up. And then what happens? MJF brings in the entire Pinnacle, so FTR and Shawn Spears and Wardlow. So what happens after that is Shawn Spears from behind, actually he comes in from behind, doesn't come in from the entrance, he actually comes in from behind and attacks Punk. Then the whole Pinnacle come in and then proceed to attack Punk. Then FTR grabs Punk and then Shawn Spears. So they grab Punk, from his arms and legs, and then Shawn Spears hits him with the chair, which looked painful. And then MJF tells Wardlow to powerbomb Punk on the chair. And then at this point, Wardlow looked kind of guilty about it. He looked really guilty about it, but after that, of course, MJF, Wardlow powerbombs in, and MJF basically sits on CM Punk Kenta style. And, of course, he talks about, basically puts himself over, and the segment ends. So, overall, I really enjoyed this segment. Every time when CM Punk and MJF go at it on the microphone, you can definitely sense this, whole impact of realism, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of realism regarding this particular feud. And the best storylines in wrestling are always the storylines that involve real life. And this storyline is basically real life. And that is what I really enjoy about this feud. Don't, forget about, of course, MJF's amazing, heel character and Punk's, of course, the guy that, said the pipe bomb and all that. I mean, this whole storyline is based off, real life. And that's what I really enjoy about it. And that's what is really getting me hooked into this match. And I'm really excited to see what happens next week because they are going to be wrestling on television next week in Chicago. So if what they will be doing next week, I mean, we could be seeing MJF beating CM Punk. And I've stated this earlier in the review, but if MJF beats CM Punk, I honestly have absolutely no problem like that whatsoever because MJF right now is on the roll of a lifetime right now. And as a heel, the guy MJF, and I said this before and I'll say it again. MJF is the type of heel that you want to pay money to see him get his ass kicked. That is the type of heel that MJF is, and that is the heel that wrestling is supposed to have. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people hate Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. They're arguably the worst aspects of WWE television. They're heels, but they don't get that legit heat. They get that heat, they get that go away heat where a lot of fans just want to see you off television. Nobody wants you there. It's pure garbage. MJF is completely, MJF is by far the best heel in the wrestling business today, period. And, I feel like this match will definitely set the tone for what it is to come regarding MJF this whole year. Because, again, MJF, and this is a big prediction, I've said this before, MJF is winning the world title at Double or Nothing. I'm saying this right here, and if I'm right, I will come on here and I'll say I'm right. But if I'm wrong, I will come on here as well, and I'll say, okay, I'm wrong. But I definitely do have that sense of MJF beating Hangman Page for the world title. But that segment was freaking awesome. Max Caster backstage talking about Jon Moxley and says Anthony Bowens will kick Jon Moxley's ass on Rampage. So it's going to be Jon Moxley versus Anthony Bowens on Rampage. So that's going to be a fun match. Tony Schiavone then interviews Julia Hart, and basically what happens, we're going to be getting Julia Hart versus Jade Cargill for the TBS Championship on Rampage. So great match to see. It's kind of weird. Since Dynamite is on TBS, you would assume that the TBS Championship will be defended on TBS, but no, it's actually reversed. The TNT Championship is actually being defended on TBS, and the TBS Championship is actually being defended on TNT. Granted, it's not really that big of a deal, but I'm just saying. It's kind of weird, but it's not really a big deal. It really doesn't matter. It really does not matter at the end of the day. We get Red Velvet versus Laylah Hirsch. Of course, Laylah Hirsch turned heel and is, I don't know why. I mean, it was one of those things where I really didn't understand. I'm like, why are you turning Laylah Hirsch heel? It makes absolutely no sense. She was much better off as a babyface, in my opinion. I don't know. My opinion, I felt like it was something that, they had nothing to do. They had nothing for Laylah Hirsch. So they're like, all right, you know what? We're going to turn you heel. But in my opinion, Laylah Hirsch was totally fine as a babyface, in my opinion. I don't know why they turned her heel. Made no sense. But throughout the match, Laylah goes for a powerbomb in the corner. We got a shotgun dropkick by Laylah. Laylah's in control. We go to commercial break. At this point, Laylah's in control. Once we're back from break, Velvet goes for a stunner off the middle rope. We get a clothesline by Velvet. Then we get a back elbow by Velvet. Laylah then gets taken down on the middle rope. We got a double knees to the back of Laylah Hirsch. We get a couple of shots to the back of Velvet when Laylah has a waistlock applied. Then after that, Velvet escapes a German suplex. Then Velvet hits the spear. We get a cover and a near fall. Then we get a powerbomb by Laylah Hirsch. We get a knee strike by Laylah. Then we get a cover and a near fall. Then Laylah then transitions to the leg lock. Then Velvet gets her foot onto the bottom rope. Then we get a pump kick to the head of Red Velvet into the corner. Then we get an ankle lock by Laylah Hirsch. We get an inside cradle by Velvet. We get a near fall. Then Velvet goes for a kick, but Laylah rolls her up. She grabs the tights. Laylah gets the 3 count and wins the match in typical heel fashion. Then after that, Laylah applies the cross arm breaker after the match. And then Chris Statlander comes in for the save. And yeah, that was Red Velvet versus Laylah Hirsch. Red Velvet is 100% definitely improving. She's going to be a star in the future. And I do think Laylah Hirsch is 100% going to be a star as well. But I mean, again, it really, to me at least, not really being as invested in Laylah Hirsch, even though I do think Laylah Hirsch is really good. I just do not know why they turned her heel. To me, it just made no sense. It really just made no sense, in my opinion. All right, Nyla Rose then comes out of nowhere. Then she just cuts a promo on Ruby Soho about, she, wanting to be the TBS champion. And next week she wants Ruby Soho. What are my thoughts on this? To be quite honest with you, I did not care at all what Nyla Rose said. I was a fan of Nyla Rose in the beginning, but later on, after she lost the women's title, and, Carl Sheeta had that, year-long, I believe it was a year-long run. With the women's title. I mean, like, to me, Nyla Rose kind of just fell down the card, in my opinion. After she lost the title, I just wasn't really as invested in Nyla Rose as I should have been. And this whole thing, in my opinion, with her, being pissed off about losing the TBS championship and then, what happened, challenging Ruby Soho to a match randomly where, Ruby Soho is going to go over regardless. I mean, to me, it just made no sense. So I just do not know why they just booked this match out of nowhere. But hey, we're going to be getting Nyla Rose versus Ruby Soho. Is it going to be a good match? Yes, I think it's going to be a good match. But again, I just do not know why this match is happening because it just happened out of nowhere, in my opinion. All right, we got the main event of the evening with Adam Cole, baby, versus freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy in a unsanctioned, keyword, unsanctioned. People need to know the difference between a sanctioned and a non-sanctioned match. Lights out match. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about, first off, after I go through the match, a lot of people were pissed off that Adam Cole lost. This match. Okay, I'm going to be talking about why, people on social media complaining shouldn't really be complaining because it really makes no sense. And again, it goes to the argument on wins and losses matter in AEW and in WWE. It's a completely different ballgame. A lot of people say, oh, when AEW does this, you defend them. But when WWE does this, you absolutely shit on them. Okay, people, listen what I'm telling you right now. The booking philosophy between WWE and AEW is absolutely, completely different. And I will go more in depth after I run down the match. But the match starts. Cassidy destroys his glasses. Both exchange shots. Both go right after each other with a couple of right hands. Cassidy then gets sent to the outside. Cassidy then sends Cole to the guardrail. We got a shotgun dropkick by Cassidy with his hands in his pockets on the outside. Then Cole reverses and sends Cassidy to the guardrail. We get a side slam on Cassidy on top of the guardrail. Then Cole goes under the ring. He grabs a chair. What happens when he tries to pull the chair? It is Danhausen. Yes, Danhausen. That Danhausen that you see on social media all the time, which I will admit, I marked out for Danhausen because, like, I was introduced to Danhausen via social media. Like, you know, Kenny Omega, I was introduced to Kenny Omega, like, back in, like, 2016. Granted, I didn't see any of his matches, but I was introduced to him via social media. And I constantly, every time I go on Twitter, I see everything. Danhausen this, Danhausen that, Danhausen this. So it's great to see Danhausen on AEW television. And officially, I believe he's already signed because they stated he's all elite. So, again, nice little cameo by Danhausen. It's great to see Danhausen in the room. And, you know, really, really entertaining moment of the entire match, in my opinion. But after that, Cassidy hits a tornado DDT. Cole goes for a pump kick. Then after that, he sends Cassidy into the corner. Cole tries to go for the Panama Sunrise, but Cassidy catches Cole and sends him through the table in the timekeeper's area. But then Cassidy tries to go for the Orange Punch, but then runs runs to the back. But then Cole sends Cassidy into the corner. He takes the fingers of Cassidy onto the ring post, and then Cole takes out a couple of weapons in the ring. We go to a commercial break, but then Cole is in control during the break. Then he hits Cassidy with the chair, and then he puts the trash can onto the head of Cassidy and hits a super kick. Then Cassidy shoots the fire extinguisher. Yes, he blasts the fire extinguisher on Cole during the commercial break. So usually I do not pay attention to the match during commercial break because, like, you know, when you hear the commentators, it's more it's more for me, you know, a little more enjoyable. When you hear commercials over, it really kind of takes the experience away. But I'm glad at least they show what happens during the commercial break. That's what picture-in-picture is for. But, you know, Orange Cassidy, you know, blew a whole fire extinguisher on Adam Cole during the break. Then after that, both have a chain. We get a brainbuster onto the knee of Cassidy by Adam Cole. Then we get a cover into near fall. Cole then picks up Cassidy, but Cassidy counters into the stunt dog millionaire. But then Cassidy hits the Michinoku driver on Cole through the chairs, so that was really painful. Then we get a cover into near fall. Then Cassidy runs into a super kick by Adam Cole. Then Cole calls somebody, so he calls out a random person of the Elite. But what happens is Brandon Cutler comes out, but then Wheeler Yuta out of nowhere from the Best Friends takes out Brandon Cutler. But then Bobby Fish takes out Wheeler Yuta, but then Chuck Taylor comes in, and then he sends Bobby Fish to the guardrail. And then the Bucks come in out of nowhere, but then they hit a super kick on, a double super kick, I should say, by Matt and Nick Jackson on Chuck Taylor. Then after that, they want to hit the triple super kick, but what happens? Roppongi Vice comes in. Both, of course, Rocky Romero and Trent come in and, you know, make the save. Then Cassidy goes for the beach break. We get a cover and a near fall. We get an orange punch by Cassidy. Cole goes for a low blow, but Cassidy has a steel cup hidden. Then Cassidy goes for those amazing, you guys know how much I love those amazing kicks by Orange Cassidy. Then Cassidy goes to the top. Cassidy hits the Panama Sunrise. Yes. Orange Cassidy hits the freaking Panama Sunrise. Adam Cole's move. He hits the freaking Panama Sunrise after that. We get a cover and a near fall. Cassidy then wraps the chain all over his head, but then Cole escapes. Cole then is running away. We're running away through the tunnel, but then Cole comes in backstage. Then Cole picks up Cassidy and throws him through the table, and you can see Tony Khan in the background, which is really funny. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a right hand by Cole. Cole then hits a super kick on Cassidy, but then Cole pulls down the knee pad. Cole then runs into a super kick by Cassidy after that, but then Cassidy wraps the chain around his right hand, and he basically wants to go for the orange punch. But then after that, Cole hits Cassidy with the light. Then Cole climbs up the tunnel, and then Cassidy then climbs up from behind. Cole is just looking like, where the hell is Orange Cassidy? But not realizing that Orange Cassidy is actually from behind. Then after that, what happens? He hits a low blow on Adam Cole. And then Cassidy hugs Cole after that and does not let go. And then throws Cole down in the most casual way possible, which is entertaining to watch. And then they go through the table or through the whole staging area, whatever you want to call it. We get a cover, and Orange Cassidy wins this unsanctioned match. People do not know the difference between an unsanctioned and a sanctioned match. And this is really important, especially when it comes to AEW, and I'll explain why later. But Orange Cassidy wins the Lights Out match. And I just realized that I completely skipped Britt Baker's segment. Oh my God, I absolutely missed Britt Baker's segment. But before I get on with that, because this segment happened before the whole Lights Out match, my dumbass did not talk about Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. I have the notes right here, but I completely missed it. I do not know why. That is my fault. But I'm going to be talking about the match. So a lot of people were complaining that, the finish was kind of a joke and really an embarrassment and all that stuff. First off, that finish was totally fine with me. And especially when it comes to Orange Cassidy, because that is Orange Cassidy's character. And if you don't like that, tough shit, watch something else. Number 2, Adam Cole's lost. Okay, first off, if you're complaining about Adam Cole losing in this match, I mean, clearly you do not know the difference between a sanctioned and an unsanctioned match. This match was unsanctioned. So what does that mean? This match is not official. It does not count. This match does not count on the win-loss record because, keep in mind, wins and losses matter in AEW, and they do have a win-loss record for each individual wrestler. Yes, they do. In WWE, you do not see anything of a win-loss record when it comes to a wrestler. None. You want to know why? It's because of the fact that WWE is extremely lazy, and the way they book is completely different for AEW. AEW books completely different than the WWE. Period. If that is something that you just can't get across your head, okay, to all you E-drones out there, I'm sorry. You guys have no brains. That's just my opinion. But, overall, this was a really fun match. The inclusion of Danhausen, Cassidy just going crazy. I actually expected Cole to win the match. But, I thought, this was, done deal. Cole was winning the match. But, no, Orange Cassidy actually won the feud, which I actually have no problem with because of the fact that, again, it's a non-sanctioned lights-out match. It is not official, so it doesn't count towards Adam Cole's record. Pure reason as to why wins and losses matter in AEW, but this match is an exception because it is a lights-out match. Period. Get that in your head. Thank you. Adam Cole is definitely going to be in the main event. Bro, this guy's going to be... I definitely do believe, MJF is going to get his moment, and Adam Cole throughout this year is going to be feuding against Omega once Omega comes back, but I may be entirely wrong. My prediction for the world title scene in the future may be completely different in the next 2 months, or in the next 3 or 4 months. It can be completely different, but I definitely do trust AEW to see where they're going to be going, because, this whole feud between Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy is already over. This whole lights out match basically, finished the whole thing, and that was that. But overall, the lights out match was amazing. Quickly before I get out of here, I'm going to be talking about Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, her segment. My dumbass completely skipped this segment. Even though I have it on my notes, I did not read it because I completely skipped it by accident. So that is my fault. But she basically cuts a promo. She has all of her awards on a table in the center of the ring, of course. Her PWI awards and her Inside the Ropes awards. All that stuff. Those are actual records right there, okay? Those are actual records, not Guinness World Records like Natalia. But she says it's been a whole while since Cleveland and her had a little chat. It's been a little while that she hasn't been on the mic, which is criminal because, apparently CM Punk and MJF can't keep her name out of their mouths, which is hilarious. Of course, she shows off her awards and all that stuff. I love the fact that AEW is actually acknowledging that these awards actually exist. WWE, PWI, of course, they of course, give these awards to a WWE wrestler if a WWE wrestler wins them. But WWE, from what I hear, they really do not acknowledge it on, social media or television. Maybe they do on television, not on television, on social media. Correct me if I'm wrong. But on television, they really do not acknowledge it. Oh, yeah, I forgot. WWE's not in the pro wrestling business. Call me biased. I do not care. I'm just speaking the truth. They're not in the pro wrestling business. They're in the media business. If you look up the WWE online, on Google, they're called the media business, not a wrestling business, even though they are a wrestling company. But that's another story for another time. But since the night she won the title, she had 9 singles victories, and she did all that with a broken freaking wrist. It says that this division was a wasteland before her, and of course she did not take anybody's spot. She created the top spot. She surpassed everybody on the roster, and she's been making history since the day she got here. It says Cleveland, she is here for them, and of course, puts over herself as usual because Dr. Britt Baker is a heel. And she says that she will be the champion that we deserve, and we will finally have a Baker that we can count on. I believe that is a football a shot at football. I do not watch football. Get mad at me. I do not care. But then, of course, we can count on Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and that segment ends. Overall, I am 100%, I'm a big fan of Britt Baker. She is amazing. She's probably, in my opinion, one of the best women's wrestlers in the world right now. My top 2 favorite wrestlers in the world, women's wrestlers, are definitely Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. Britt Baker is extremely entertaining on the microphone, man. She's amazing. I believe every single word that she says. Same as Thunder Rosa. And speaking of Thunder Rosa, we should definitely get a match between Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker inside of a freaking steel cage. If, again, we got to get that match. I definitely do believe that Thunder Rosa is the one to take the women's championship off of Britt Baker, in my opinion. I think it makes the perfect sense, but we'll see what happens there. But, yeah, that was my Beach Break review. That was my Dynamite review from January 26th, 2022. Overall thoughts on this show. I really enjoyed the show. This was a really fun show, in my opinion. It was a really good show. The matches on the show, the lights out match and the ladder match were just flat out balls to the wall. I really enjoyed this whole show in general. One of the reasons why I like Dynamite so much is because there's a lot of importance when it comes to the television, and that is great to see. There's a lot of important matches that happen on the show, not throwaway matches like you see on Raw and SmackDown. Now there can be like 1 or 2 matches on Dynamite or Rampage that you just really do not give a shit about, but in most cases and every week, the majority of the matches on a Dynamite card or at least a Rampage card, are matches that are really important, in my opinion. Maybe Rampage, I could take Rampage out of there because, there are some weeks on Rampage where, like, Rampage is like, they'll give you a random tag team match that you really don't care about and give you a match that you really care about, but I'm talking about Dynamite. Dynamite really just gives you importance when it comes to the matches that they give you, and, that's what I really enjoy about the show. But, yeah, that was my Beach Break review. That was my AEW Dynamite review from January 26, 2022. Be on the lookout. Tomorrow, I will be uploading my Royal Rumble predictions. Of course, we got the Royal Rumble this Saturday. Of course, the road to WrestleMania kicks off this Saturday. I'm really excited to see what happens at the Royal Rumble. There's a lot of scenarios that can really happen at the Royal Rumble on Saturday, so we'll see what happens, but be on the lookout for my Royal Rumble predictions video. Most likely, I will upload my review for the Royal Rumble on Sunday, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, that was my Dynamite review. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos. And this is Broken Havoc from the Broken Havoc podcast, signing out.